What's going on, everyone? I'm AB Sports. Just a few days from now, the NFL playoffs begin, which means it's time for me to predict them. 12 playoff teams will be in action this weekend for a super wildcard weekend with 2 days of triple headers. And my predictions will start off with the Browns versus the Steelers. It is not often a team goes 1-4 in their last 5 games and still makes the playoffs. However, that's where we are with the 2020 Steelers, who after starting 11-0 are limping into the playoffs at 12-4. I did not think I'd be picking the Steelers to win a playoff game after watching the end of their season, but speaking of limping into the playoffs, let me introduce you to the Cleveland Browns. Their last 2 games were losing to the Jets and barely beating the Steelers' backups in Week 17. They also finished with a negative point differential on the season despite an 11-5 record. That means when they won barely, and when they lost big. That is not sustainable, especially without Kevin Stefanski, the Browns head coach, who is out because of COVID. I do not think the Browns will win this game. I think it will be ugly and low scoring, but I think the Steelers will win it. Next up is the Colts versus the Bills, and I do not think this game is going to be close. The Bills are on a roll. They've won 9 of their last 10 games, 6 straight by 10 points, and 3 straight by at least 25. I think the Bills are the best team in the league. They simply score at will. In order to beat this team, you have to outscore them. You just can't really stop their offense. Josh Allen is playing at an MVP level, and he has a speedy wide receiver group led by the incredible Stephon Diggs. The Colts are going to have 2 problems in this game. One, even though their defense is good, I don't think it can contain the Bills' offense. And 2, even if their defense can somewhat contain Josh Allen, the Phillip Rivers-led offense just isn't explosive enough to score too much on this Bills defense that is very much improved from the beginning of the season. I think Ravens-Titans will be the best game of Wildcard Weekend. These are the 2 best rushing offenses in the NFL. Just last Sunday, Derrick Henry rushed for 250 yards, and the Ravens rushed for 400 yards as a team. This is also a playoff rematch of one of the most shocking outcomes of last year, when the 6-seed Titans upset the 14-2 Ravens. But I don't think it's going to go the same way. The Ravens were left for dead at 6-5 earlier in the year, but are roaring into the playoffs at 11-5. The Titans are definitely not roaring. Offensively, they're chugging along with 396 yards per game, which is 3rd in the league behind just Kansas City and Buffalo. But defensively, yikes. The Titans are allowing 398 yards per game, which ranks 28th in the NFL, only ahead of Atlanta, Houston, Jacksonville, and Detroit. All those teams are terrible. The Titans were exposed by Green Bay in Week 16, and even though Baltimore can't tackle Derrick Henry, which no one can, so there's not really any shame in that, the Titans' defense is not even remotely equipped to stop Lamar and the Ravens. Head over to the NFC. Rams-Seahawks is similar to Browns-Steelers in a way. Both teams are kind of falling apart. Jared Goff is hurt, but even with him, the Rams' offense was terrible, and the Seahawks have fallen off a cliff offensively, as they've been the worst passing team in the entire NFL over the last 3 weeks. Both of these teams peaked around week 8 or 9 and have been kind of cruising into the playoffs, slowly declining since. It's not really a recipe for playoff success. The Rams' #1 defense with Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey can't be overlooked, but when I see 2 very similar teams, I pick the better quarterback, and there's no doubt in my mind that that's Russell Wilson. Next up is Bears versus Saints. The Bears saw a bit of an offensive revival these last few weeks, scoring 30-plus points in 4 straight games. However, take that with a grain of salt, because the defenses they were playing in that 4-game span are ranked 27th, 30th, 31st, and 32nd in the NFL, out of 32 teams. The Saints are ranked 4th. The Saints will also have all of their offensive weapons at their disposal for the first time all season, with Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara returning. Lastly, this is Drew Brees' final season, and I do not think he's going to go out losing on a wild card weekend to Mitch Trubisky and an 8-8 Bears team. And the last first-round matchup is Tom Brady and the surging Buccaneers against the 7-9 Washington football team, who have a very limited offense. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. I think the Bucs win. On to the Divisional Round, and I'm also not going to spend too much time on Steelers-Bills. If you listened to what I said about these teams earlier in the video, you know why I'm picking Buffalo to make it to the AFC Championship. Who will their opponent be? Well, that's where things get interesting. I am picking the Ravens to beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead in the Divisional Round. I think the Chiefs are going to lose for the same reason the Ravens lost last year as the #1 seed. The Chiefs had clinched the 1 seed, so they did not play any of their starters week 17. That also meant they had a bye in the first round. This game will either be January 16th or 17th. The last time Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and Travis Kelce will have been on the field before that game is December 27th. That means they will have not played for 19 days at a minimum. That's a long time, and the Chiefs already start slow in games. I could see this game getting out of hand early. This thing the Chiefs do where they sleepwalk through the first quarter and a half will be exaggerated with the long rest, and this Ravens offense is humming. They have been playing for their playoff lives since November, and momentum matters. On the NFC side of things, we have Seahawks versus Saints, which I think is a pretty fascinating matchup. I know the Saints just seem incapable of winning big games, so I don't know why I'm picking them here, but Seattle is just too Russell Wilson dependent. They have one way to win. Russ puts the team on his back and makes miraculous plays. If you don't believe me, go back and watch the highlights from their game against Minnesota this year. This Saints team can win with Kamara, or Taysom, or Brees to Thomas, or their ferocious defense. Other than quarterback, wide receiver, and I guess safety with Jamal Adams, the Saints are better at every single position on the field. That should equate to playoff success. Next up, the Packers will host the Bucs. I mentioned something earlier criticizing the Bears for putting up big points on bad defenses. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the Bucs for the same fault. They have played against the defenses ranked 27th, 29th, 32nd, and then 29th again in the last 4 weeks, where they've been on their tear. I know it gave the offense confidence, and it should be enough to beat Washington, but not these Packers. Aaron Rodgers is coming off one of the best quarterback seasons in NFL history, with 48 touchdowns and just 5 picks. The Packers aren't losing this game at Lambeau. This AFC Championship will be a fascinating one. Bills-Ravens will feature 2 quarterbacks who hadn't won a playoff game before this year, and they'd be facing each other with a chance at the Super Bowl. The Ravens were my Super Bowl pick in the preseason, but I really don't think they'll beat the Bills if this ends up becoming a matchup. The game will be in Buffalo, in the cold, and I think Buffalo will find a way to get a lead in this game because they usually come out of the gates fast, and I still haven't seen Lamar Jackson come from behind to win against a good team. So Buffalo makes it to the Super Bowl, and their opponents from the NFC will be the Packers, who will beat the Saints because their offense is just so much more explosive, and they will be used to the cold, freezing Lambeau conditions in late January. That would give us an Aaron Rodgers versus Josh Allen Super Bowl. And on the biggest stage in the world, I think Rodgers will prevail, giving him his 2nd Super Bowl the same year he wins his 3rd MVP. These are my picks. Leave yours below, and thanks for watching.